Now I'd like to just speak a little bit about using vibrato on the flute. It's a bit like the string instruments. We would normally use vibrato all the time unless specifically asked not to. So I would play maybe a piece like this. Now you can ask me to do non-vibrato and then I will just play straight. So it has just a very different effect. Obviously, depending on what sort of mood you want to conjure up, or if you also want to have non-vib on the strings, you can create different colors that way also. Another thing you can use to alter the color on the flute are harmonics. So it won't have the same sort of range of harmonics as we do on the string instruments. So the flute overblows on the octave, then on the fifth, then the octave, the third, the fifth. So by the time we get to anything terribly interesting, we've sort of gone off the range of the flute, really. So so they sound a little bit like this if I overblow the. So, but if they're incorporated in a piece, they can actually be sort of quite nice. So they just have a different sort of color. So like always write them from at least the C, which is the third space on the treble clef, because that's the first harmonic we get to. So it sounds, this is the normal C. Here's the harmonic C. So it has a sort of a slightly dirtier sound, or not, so a little bit more diffuse, not as clear. So here's a little excerpt from a piece that uses harmonics. So So you can hear the difference between the harmonics and then the real pitch at the end. There is supposed to be a crescendo as well. So that's the harmonic sound. It's also very nice. And if I can't produce a harmonic, I can produce a sound that sounds similar to a harmonic as well. So if you do sort of pick a note that's maybe not great for a harmonic. Also, really it's best to maybe wait till sort of the G on the top of the treble clef. Also, we can look at whistle tones. Whistle tones are incredibly brittle tones that happen. You can actually hear them if I make a diminuendo. They sort of happen, it's the air sort of breaking at the very edge out here. So it sounds like this. So they're very brittle little sounds, but you can actually play them singly. You can actually pick out the pitches. So just so I can play a few for you. They're incredibly quiet. So just be careful if you're using something like that. They're actually quite difficult for me to find if other people are playing because I can't hear what I'm doing. So that's something just to consider as well when you're writing. Just for things like that, or some special sounds, they're sometimes hard just to get to. So maybe just give a little bit of time, or maybe give a little bit of space sound-wise. Another thing we can do on the flute is trills, obviously. you can do wider trills as well as tonal and semitonal trills. But sometimes in music, what we're asked to do is a thing called bisbigliando, and it's sort of a timbral trill. So instead of playing A to B flat or something like that, I might play A to a different fingering for A, and it sort of just gives this sort of effect. So you get a sort of slightly coloured effect on the note, which can be really quite nice. So you just need to write a timbral trill. As I say, I'll send through some music and some examples of all of these effects actually written. So you should have a file with those in them. Okay. Another thing you can do, which is quite fun, is to actually play and sing at the same time. So to sort of demonstrate that, I'm going to just play a little bit of this piece by a composer called George Crumb. It's called Vox Balaenae, and it's one of the very good examples of writing for singing and playing at the same time. So listen to this. So you can sort of hear, that's quite fun. And another thing you can actually do as well on the flute is speak. So I've played lots of pieces that have speaking involved in them. Even if you just want to use the odd word, just because, especially a word that uses like, and you can change the pitches. That sort of thing. Or some people just use it for effect at the end of a whoever you are. So you can take sound in and off the flute. So like also you will get a lot of sort of breath sounds. So if you want to take the air, start with a sort of airy sound that doesn't like this. So you can sort of take just have an airy sound and then go into the tone and then go away from the tone as well. So there's a huge amount of possibilities in that way. And also some people, you might have noticed in that Vox Balaenae piece, I actually turned in the head joint. So if I blow also into the flute, I can blow in straight in, which has a very different sound. Or I can go that sort of thing. So people turn it in and out, using the air that way as well. So there's a huge number of possibilities, but I can't speak about absolutely everything now. So if anyone has any specific questions and they're interested in very particular sort of technique, you can of course email me individually and maybe send me a sample and I could send you a sound bite or something of what you're thinking of doing. That would be really useful. Okay? Hi there, my name is Susan Doyle and welcome to the Irish Composition Summer School. I'm going to be playing the flute for your compositions. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what you're going to write. Today I'm going to speak about how to write for the flute. I think we'll start with just some basic things. So I think the first thing we should just look at is the range of the flute. This is the C, our concert flute. I have some other flutes as well, and I'll speak about them later in the video. But this one has a range of middle C up 3 octaves. So I'll just play the range for you so you can get an idea. So that's the range of the flute. As you can hear, it has different timbres in the different octaves. So what I thought I'd do, just so that you can hear how the flute sits playing tunes in the different octaves, I was just going to play the same tune in all 3 octaves so that you can hear how the timbre changes. So you can hear how the different colours change through the octaves. So just be careful, obviously, with the low register. It's quite gentle, and just pit it against the viola and the cello. They will be much stronger in that register than the flute. So just be careful dynamically when you're writing for the 3 instruments together in that group. Once the flute goes higher, it will really sort of hold its own for the pitch alone. Okay, so the next thing I just wanted to have a quick look at, which is very important, is just phrasing, just to add phrase marks to your when you're writing your music. So for example, if I receive a piece of music that has no phrasing in it, I will just play it like this. So this is a minuet by Bach. So the opening just goes like this. If I get it with no phrasing, it sounds like this. Now, if I actually add in some phrasing, it sounds like this. Which is much more interesting. And also the fast movement of this one, which I'm sure you're familiar with, has a semiquaver passage in it. Again, if I play all the semiquavers without any slurring, it sounds like this. Now, if I add in some articulation, some slurring, sorry. Oh. So again, that gives it a lot more variety. And so obviously you can slur in 2s, in 4s, in 3s, whatever you actually like, or if it's one whole melody, you can put a whole phrase mark over it, or if you would like me to tongue one or notes, just, you know, phrase in groups. Okay, so that's just really, really important to just do that. Okay. I'd like to introduce you now to the piccolo, which is obviously the baby flute, but it packs quite a punch for such a teeny little instrument. It has a range very similar to the flute, except that it just starts on the D, so it's one note up from the flute. So you write in exactly the same range as the flute, except it sounds one octave higher. So we start on low D, and then we go up to the high C, same as the flute, except it sounds an octave higher than that, which is, I think, the top note of the piano. So it's quite high up there and quite strident, you know, so obviously just be careful when you're writing with the string instruments, because it's really powerful up there. Very, very powerful. So you have to sort of think maybe if you do want to use the piccolo and why you would want to use it, you know. It can be quite nice when it plays quite plaintively. And here's a little bit of a fast movement of Shostakovich. So it's quite a jaunty little creature, and normally you would hear like little tunes on it. Let me see if I can find something here. Yeah, just little dances maybe, something like this. So it's normally that sort of little tune, maybe something like that. It's quite a little character actually, you know, so you can do most of the same stuff that you can actually do on the flute. So you can play with double tonguing, triple tonguing, flutter tonguing. It's, yeah, you can, it just doesn't have the same sort of resonance. So things like tongue ramming doesn't work so well. Things like that. But apart from that, it can do pretty much most of what the flute can do. Okay? And now for one of my favourite instruments, which is the alto flute. It is a beautiful sound and it's quite mellow, and it is the only transposing instrument that we have. All the other instruments are in C, but this one is actually in G. So you will write the exact same range as you write for the flute, but it sounds a fourth lower. So when I play middle C on this, it sounds the G below that. So you can technically play 3 octaves up on it, but not really on this flute. So I would ask you maybe just to write maybe 2.5 octaves above the lowest note would be great. Okay, so I'll just play that for you, so just to give you an idea. beautiful sound down the lower register. So again, most of the things that you can actually do on the flute, you can also do on the alto flute. The thing about the alto flute is a little bit more resonant. So things like air sounds, it has a little bit more resonance. Also maybe for tongue ramming, for example. Has a little bit more sound and maybe a little bit more interesting. You can still do all the other things, the double tonguing. And I think just this has a lovely colour, and it might be an interesting one to explore with some of the other, with the viola and the cello, seeing as we have low instruments. So if you wanted to stay in a slightly more bass sort of area with the instruments, you could maybe consider using the alto flute and also maybe the bass flute, which I'm going to show you now. Next, I'd like to speak a little bit about articulation. We use this on the flute all the time, apart from when we're under a slur. And the normal articulation is just called single articulation, where we just stroke each note with the tongue, sort of like ta-ta-ta-ta-ta, like that. So it sounds like this. And we do staccato. Or we can do legato tonguing. Now we can also do double tonguing, which is quite easy enough to do on the flute. So we're just doubling up, we're just going taka 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 taka, and it sounds like this. And we can also do it on single notes. So it means we can just play articulation a little bit faster. We can also do triple tonguing, which sounds like. And then we sort of get into the more sort of fun tonguing. So we have different more effects that we can actually make with articulation. So we have flutter tonguing, which is probably the most common one. So this is where I just roll my tongue and you get this sort of effect. So that is flutter tonguing. It can be used all over the flute. And it's quite common, actually. You know, it's in quite common usage. So, and then we have slap tonguing, which is really just sort of making a sort of noise here. So you're actually slapping the tongue on the back of the teeth and you're just making a more percussive effect. So it sounds like this. And then we also have what's called a tongue ram, which is not a very attractive name, but basically what you do is you actually ram your tongue into the embouchure hole. So I turn the flute in and you get this sort of effect. Sort of funky sound. Now you have to sort of expel a lot of air while you're doing it. So I probably can't do it for a very protracted length of time, and I can't do it terribly fast either. So maybe like about that sort of speed. That sort of speed maybe. And it actually sounds a seventh lower than the note that you're actually playing. But I know all your tutors will help you with all that sort of thing. So then we also have articulation that you can do with the breath. Now I know we had the slap tongue, but we can also make different sounds. So for example, if I go k, you can hear it. So, or you can go sa. So you can do like quite sort of funky breath effects if you actually want to on the flute. So yeah, there's a lot of different things you can actually do because the breath makes the sound. So there's lots of possibilities there. Okay, so that's just a broad overview of what we can do with tonguing. The bass flute, probably the one that you don't come across very often. Is a lot more flute for not very many more notes. It only plays one octave lower than the C flute, so it only extends the range down, by one octave. So you write in exactly the same way as you do for the C flute. You write from middle C up 3 octaves, but it sounds an octave lower. So this is the range. It's a little bit more cumbersome and clumsy than the other flutes. Again, the sound is probably not so appealing at the top and really more interesting down the bottom. You don't come across the bass flute that much because of its penetrating quality. It's really better used in chamber music settings or if it's recorded. So that's where it would have come to prominence mostly, was in film music where they could actually closely record it and it would have become very popular in that sort of setting, or where they could have multiple flutes playing bass and thereby you could get something like this famous solo from The Jungle Book. So again, you can use the bass flute sort of in that context, or you can also do a lot of the same sort of things as you can on all the other flutes. Again, the bass flute has a little bit more resonance, so it might be a little bit more interesting for maybe even speaking. Good for breath sounds, or also these sort of sounds. So you'll get a little bit more resonance from it, so it probably sounds louder in those sort of situations. And also for tongue ramming. that sort of thing. I hope all of that was really useful. I don't want to go on and on and on because I could, and I know I've omitted a lot of things, but I hope I've given you enough material to sort of work with. And I will send on some PDFs of some music that's written with a lot of these effects in them so that you can actually see how they're written down. So you should have some PDFs of those. And of course, please do feel free to email me if you want to ask any questions directly about anything you want to write, even though we will be having a Q&A, so you obviously can ask me anything there. But if there's something when you're composing that you come across that you'd like to ask me directly, please feel free to email me. And I really look forward to seeing your pieces and to performing them and recording them. Looking forward to that. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone and welcome to the composition summer classes. This is Adrian and I'm playing the George Crumb cello style. Or the upside down cello, used famously by George Crumb in his cult piece Black Angels for electric string quartet. And that's a sound technique you might think, and you might try to use it in some of your compositions. Obviously, if you turn the cello upside down, this is what happened with all the notes and the ambitus of the cello. So it will be like we're looking into a mirror. So everything upside down, driving in Europe. We can talk about it. The thing he was using this type of upside down cello was for a good reason, to get the viol sound, like 15th century, 16th century type of Renaissance sound, like. And in contrast with lots of crazy and modern techniques and very dramatic electrifying effects he used during the piece. So these came, as I said, in a total contrast, using these very quiet Renaissance-like sounds. Anyway, my name is Adrian and I've recorded together with Andrea 2 movements, a cello duet by Jane O'Leary. And we played it for you, recorded here in our house, and we've sent to John the score, and I think it's worth having a look because Jane is well known for his sound effects, using nature effects and so on. So in a way, if you are interested in harmonics, sul ponticello, flautando, trills and glissandi in harmonics, everything is written there in Jane O'Leary's viola and cello duet. So please have a listen, look at the score, and when you have questions and answers, maybe we can talk and we can clarify a few things if you are interested in some of those sound techniques. Now going back, we have to be very organized. I'll follow the path John McLachlan sent us an email with all the sound effects he might be interested for you to see how they are, and which Andrea already did record. So let's start with the tuning. Like the viola, we have the same A, D, G. And on the A, the second note, this one, C, it's exactly central C on the piano. So from here, we can go in the bass 2 octaves down, so. And that's not the end of the story. I will come back, we can go even lower than that, but then from the middle C on the piano, same 2 octaves up, but we can keep going. So we can add another octave, yeah, and And I can keep going using harmonics. And I keep going until the dentist will come to my house recognizing the sound from his office work. So anyway, we can go up as high as we can, almost at the end of the piano. I'm just on the cello, on the bass. From here, we can also use the scordatura, which means we can use different tunings. Don't tell this to any viola or violin player because they wouldn't do it, I guarantee. But it's worth trying if it's for a good cause only. On the cello, I don't have this problem. I have special pegs. Here, actually, fine tuners peg like, so I can go. Sometimes this is B, we can go B flat. Again, it's just such a fantastic sound. I mean, I really love this scordatura. Or you can do so another third down. I think you can reach A. You can go lower, obviously, until the bottom, but you might not be able to hear anything unless I use an electric cello and you use headphones. But I think a third down to A. That will be plenty because the string needs to vibrate more and more the lower you go. So if I go lower, it will bang the fingerboard or be not very distinctive. But now, really dark, and if you want to scare your neighbors, that's the way to go. Okay, now I've tuned to the classical tuning. Takes quite a while, but you are still lucky because in the Baroque era or Renaissance era, you know, the lute players, no? They will tune half of the time and the other half will be playing out of tune. So, and also this is how in the dance suites, the prelude started to be included in the suite of dances because the lute players, they have to tune. So instead of doing this kind of they will play and then you tune a little bit and again tuning and by the way, that's a secret, nobody did this on the cello, so you'll be the first one if you include a tuning session into the music, not before the music. Okay, so tuning C, G, D, A, and obviously we have melodies. You can play in one string and any strings. Okay, also by the way, we can a tune which starts on the A string first position. You can get 3 more colors, the same pitch, but play on other strings. So more tender, a bit darker, but same pitch, and then harmonics. So you can do it either way, and of course, obviously, you can use the bow. You can use banging with the wood. Also, you can do a mixture between wood and hair. We'll come back to all of those, but there are a few things to consider. So any tune you play on A string, especially first few positions, we can play on each string going higher and higher and higher. Double stops, obviously you can play on 2 strings. Again. Okay, we have triple stops, which means, yeah, we can play on 3 strings. when you play as a double stop, so you play the 2 strings down and then 2 strings up, like, or you can try to pluck them to catch them 3 of them, which is quite tricky, but there are lots of chances to get them 3 in a go. The sound is a bit rough, so the louder you play and shorter, you can get 3 notes together. And of course you can play on 4 strings, but you divide them 2 by 2, like a C major chord, or you can divide it in 3. Or you can do arpeggiato, as you say, from a string to the other. Or you can do the opposite. Or few options. Yeah, you can do anyhow. Intensity. Obviously, the closer you play to the frog, the heel, the louder and the rougher sound it is. Because in the Baroque era, they used to play like this. That's another option to play in your pieces, because you avoid the rough part of the bow, and the sound will be more likely more refined, like playing in a chamber music room like this one. For kings and queens, of course they wouldn't come to my house, but just to get a picture. As opposed, if I play on this one, it's quite rough, because yeah, we need to play. That's why we are playing on metal strings and not gut strings nowadays, and at the frog, because we have to project more in bigger halls. I mean, it didn't happen in the last 2 years. But in theory, if we have the chance to play in National Concert Hall, then we have to project the sound. Unless you use the mic, so that there's no need. Vibrato, non-vibrato, extra vibrato. So, when you play Schumann, Schubert, romantic repertoire, even though it's not written vibrato, you in a part, you assume that you vibrate every single note. Schubert, Arpeggione Sonata. Vibrate every single note. I think I might have missed one, but obviously you cannot vibrate open strings and harmonics. You can vibrate, but there's no need to write them harmonics, because you like to hear this pitch as opposed to now in the contemporary music. By the way, when I look into a music and I see all the notes, I assume that I don't vibrate any note unless it's specified in writing by the composer. So make sure if you want to vibrate, write VB, and if you want to exaggerate, molto vibrato, which means quite a lot of vibrato. So normal vibrato, even though for the cellist normal vibrato and molto vibrato, it's kind of the same. We can't keep our feelings. Obviously, we have the tone color. The camera is not the best, but usually we play half distance between the end of the fingerboard and the bridge. So this is where the string vibrates the most, and we get the best sound quality. When you play on the fingerboard, it's called sul tasto, which literally in English means on the fingerboard. That's the Italian term. So you use them. Why? Because it's very poetical. The language is so beautiful, yeah, and you feel so important when you say sul tasto. Sounds already my favorite. On the fingerboard sounds like going in the factory. Okay, so on the fingerboard, sounds like, yeah, like me when I be hopefully 90 years old and I lose all my teeth, so I cannot speak. So and we can use also vibrato or non-vibrato, usually used for softer dynamics, 3p, 4p, piano, 2p. As opposed to normal string, we can play any dynamic here, but when we go on the bridge or very close to the bridge, we got this icy sound which is called sul ponticello, which means on the bridge, of course, on the little bridge. So I see if I can play the cello up for you to see. Vibrato, of course. Or long vibrato. And also, just to get the nuances, I'll play the same note, sul tasto normal and sul ponticello and the mixture. So let's say I play A on the D string, fourth position. Kind of mezzo forte, moderately loud. B flat. When you do this icy sound, you can still hear a little bit the pitch, or if you don't want, if you want more noise than the pitch, you have to make it clear. There is a way of writing the note if you want a noise more than the sound, and I'm sure John and all the professors will help you on this one. And again, you can use the legno, con legno, which means the wood. Sul tasto, normal. Good. So that will be the tone color we are playing with, and different nuances. Bowings, as we know, in all, not on the cello but on the piano, when you see a slurred, we go to the old style classical rules when they say the first note is more important than the others, unless the composer specifies otherwise. So when I see 4 notes in legato or more, like I will emphasize the first one, and then the other will become secondary notes. And I will emphasize the next note. So if you want to do otherwise, you write maybe a crescendo if you want to, or you can write some lines on top of the note or an accent. But that's the idea. So if you slur them, that's how you slur them, because you want to have on one go. If you want separate, they are more equal, more important. So we can do separate bowings. We can do staccato, slurred but dotted, each note dotted. So this means staccato. So it means we articulate equally every single note. And faster, or ricochet. Control ricochet, because could be when you hear only the first and the last note, which I like it very much. First and the last note more important. In the middle, we can play with it. Obviously, we have lots of other bowing marks and play with. So that's the legato. We have détaché also when you keep the bow on the string. So you don't articulate too much, but each equal note is heard clearly. So there are no dots, nothing, just separate notes. We have tremolo when we have to. Could be tremolo with accents on each note, or continuous tremolo. And of course, you can play tremolo in piano. Yeah, and we have down bow when you start from the strings, and then up bow when you go towards the strings. So obviously, when you attack a down bow, usually it's on the main beat. So for example, the classical rules, you have 4 beats in a bar, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 3rd are important beats. So first beat, it's down bow. 3rd beat, down bow. That was the rule, but just for you to know. So if you want a more powerful note, you go down bow, and for a more relaxed note, up bow, lifting, uplifting. Pizzicato, you can use several fingers, the middle finger the strongest. You can use the first one, equally strong, but really, if you want to hear a lot of harmonics, you use the thumb. Usually we use the thumb for 2 or 3 strings. Arpeggiato. Now I playing classical way, but could be lots of other things. Of course, you have the Bartokian pizzicato, hitting the fingerboard, nail finger pizzicato, which I'm not going to show you because I just cut my fingers, the nails, so I wouldn't use that. But of course, you can bang or kind of guitar style. When you bang, lots of you can play with pizzicato. Okay, you have spiccato when you bounce the bow off the string. And then I was showing you the tremolo, which is much faster. The ricochet, battuto, ricochet battuto. Not quite clear, but good. We were talking about playing near the bridge, on the bridge, sul tasto, also flautando, not necessarily on the bridge, but not necessarily on the fingerboard, but closer to the fingerboard. When you don't put too much pressure, in order to make the string to vibrate, you have to put pressure and speed. If we put only pressure, this is another, and which is another sound effect, yeah. So that's a. If you play just the speed, we get this flautando style, like so noise. By the way, for this one, you can get lots of subtones, so you can get really some nice sounds sometimes. You should be in a room to hear all the overtones, yeah. So. Maybe not today, but we'll have time to play them. Don't worry, yeah. With the overtones, you have to have like a bigger room and really dig out to the fingerboard, and of course, kind of wake up your neighbor's styles. I don't have neighbors here, so just sheep and the cows. It's fine, but I'm in a smaller room. So obviously, to hear the overtones, you need the sound to circulate a bit more in the air. So that's one thing. Okay, issues with harmonics. Obviously, there are some natural harmonics when you press halfway through the fingerboard, but you don't touch the fingerboard. So the one who responds naturally. And you can play them up and down, kind of glissando. You can play on two strings at the same time. Artificial harmonics, you put a finger and then you play the fifth, or the thumb in our case. Natural. So for natural harmonics you use one finger. For the artificial harmonics you use two fingers. One you press down and the other one you just touch halfway through. I love the harmonic glissandis. Amazing. Some of the harmonic you can pitch them. Do you pizzicato? Obviously they are the one you can hear the most. Sometimes. Today is the day, on a sunny day, sometimes, and there are a few, yeah, so you can use some nice harmonic, not fingers. Well, I never tried it, but it sounds this as well, but I never seen it in any parts, yeah? Tremolo harmonics. Obviously, you can do a mix between glissandi, harmonics, different sound effects. You can combine them, 2 or 3, trill. That's why also the seagull effect. When you use artificial effects, ghosts kind of like kind of the Chinese one stringed instrument. Yeah, scratch tones I already. On the G string, yeah, I can hear some subtones, very good, yeah. And of course, you can use for like very short or longer. Obviously, you might play on the tail as well. You can get some nice, or on the even on the spike. Sometimes you get, depending on the whatever you use. Yeah, I use a harp fine tuner. You can hear if you put lots of rosens. Some people they play even on the pegs, like a train arriving, an old train to the. And another beautiful sound effect I like is like the breath, when you breathe, and you can use this like this. Or I don't know if you can hear. I'll come very close to you just to hear this one. When you use the wood part of the cello, here, or like C size as well, also like breath. And by the way, if you play in different parts of the cello, you'll get different types of breath or C sounds. Or this one. Now I have to, you have to be aware that we have to use lots of rosen, so all the cello will be covered in white stuff, which being in an, I don't know, institution, state institution might not be a good idea. People getting ideas, but this is what you do. I don't know if you can see, maybe it's lots of rosen here, but I like this one, so I'm happy to use it if you are in any of the pieces. We have also mutes. That's an ordinary mute. So first of all, I do just something without mute, and now I put the mute on. That's a normal mute, very gentle. But we can go even crazier. We can go with practice mute. Looks like a torture tool. So you can put it here, covered up completely, and then sounds perfect. And you can go even deeper. And if I play the same intensity without the mute, it will be. Another sound effect actually I didn't notice in any cello composition is that, but there's always there. So after using especially this practice mute, when you take the mute off, you get also a different type of sound. It's not straight away back to normal. It's a kind of more rougher, more direct sound, because the cello kept the sound inside, like, and it's like, imagine you open the box and the sound explodes. So sometimes, just for the sake, I'm like the after practice mute effect. That's another new one you might be able to use. So that's the mutes. Microtones, of course, you have the semitone. And the quarter tones and so on. It's a bit easier on the cello because the spaces are bigger than on the viola. Usually you use it just to stretch some of the notes or to make to feel uncomfortable for, I don't know, just for a note. So I wouldn't use it in a row, but just to make a statement. So after you play, for example, when you go around the same note maybe, and then the last thing, when everyone expects the same note. So that will be, you can play with it also with this kind of microtones, and you have the gliss. And then it could be slow glissandi or fast. Or could be for the whole length of one note, or only in the last part of the note. For example, if you have two beats, 1, 2. Obviously, we can do. Or the kind of. Can do different techniques, tremolo, staccato, double stops, or you can combine lots of 4, 5, 6, 7 effects. And yeah, obviously the lower you play, the more you have to give space to the string to vibrate and to resonate. That's C on the G, D, and you need to give just more. The string will start to vibrate quicker and more direct as soon as we move to the upper strings, and especially on the A. That's how you can play so fast on A. Yeah, so more or less these are the tools you might be working in the next couple of days. Looking forward to meet you guys, looking forward to hear the question Q&A session, and if I can be of any help, yeah, please do let me know. As I said, you can listen to the cello duet by Jane O'Leary to start with, just to get an idea how those two instruments, viola and cello, sounds together, but I'm sure your tutors will have lots of other crazy music for you to listen, or interesting, even starting with George Crumb to nowadays composers, and you'll have fun there just experimenting, because I think that would be a good idea, to experiment with things like in a lab. And the good news is that nobody is dying if you do a wrong experiment. So see you soon, and take care. Bye.
Hello, my name is Andrea. I play the viola, and I'm going to show you a few different sound techniques, special sound effects, so that you know what to use in your compositions. So first of all, we start with the tuning. We have A, D, G, and C is the lowest string. So you can stop here, it's already amazing. So obviously you can play with the fingers anything on any string. You can use just one string going up, or any string, any position. We can maybe start with talking a little bit about double stops. So double stops, when you play more than one note, you play two notes simultaneously. Thirds or Fifths we don't really like, but they are possible. Fourths. You basically can use any combination up to an octave or a ninth. A ninth is a little bit stretching it for a viola because it's quite big. But also maybe seconds are not all possible. You can have a few. What else? You can, if you are using your open C string, the lowest string, you can't form any double stop with the next D, E, F, so just from G up. So these notes won't work with the C open string because they are played on the same string. So you'll be able just to form double stops from the G up. And then, yeah, in fact you can use an open string as a drone and then form different double stops. Okay, you have chords as well. 3 notes or 4 notes. Okay, depending on which part of the bow is on the string, the intensity of sound will vary. So if we play closer to the frog, the bow is less flexible, so the sound will be a little bit rougher. If we play closer to the tip of the bow is lighter, so the sound obviously will be lighter as well. A difference between vibrato and non-vibrato or extra vibrato. So the non-vibrato sound vibrato, molto vibrato, tone color. Okay, so tone color we generally play between the bridge and the fingerboard in the middle for a healthy sound, as we call it, a good quality, full-bodied sound. But then we can, if we go closer to the bridge, we get a sul ponticello, which can be molto sul ponticello if we are even closer. Or if we go further away from the bridge, towards the fingerboard or on the fingerboard, we have what we call sul tasto. You can also, like flautando is very similar to sul tasto. Flautando means pulling the bow faster, having faster speed with very light pressure. So the sound doesn't really have substance. So that's quite similar to sul tasto. Will we talk about maybe stop and put it just... Okay, let's talk a little bit about the bow and the different articulations which we can produce with the bow. We have legato, we have détaché, pizzicato, tremolo, saltando, or it's a little bit like spiccato. We also have ricochet or jeté. A down bow is generally used if we want to emphasize a beat. We generally use it for main beats. As we have more weight playing on a down bow as opposed to an up bow. Different again colors. If we play closer to the, as we were talking earlier, to the bridge, we have the sulpond. We can go as far as playing on the bridge, but in this case the pitch is not clear anymore. Then we have the sul tasto or flautando, which is very similar. Maybe with even more air in the sound. We have con sordino, the mute. Then if we use the stick as well, we can produce the effect known as con legno, and that can be two different ways: con legno battuto, con legno tratto, when you just pull the bow, and then there is one which is in between, half hair, half wood. I personally am not a big fan of the con legno battuto because it I don't like it that it hits my strings. It makes dents in my strings and also in the stick, so I prefer not to use it. But if it's just one note or two, I can maybe do you a favor and try it. Yes, then we have pizzicato, of course, in which we don't use the bow at all, and we just pluck the strings. Here we can also play double stops or chords. We can also play Bartokian pizzicato, in which we just... For this kind of pizzicato we need a bit of time though, just to make sure that we have the string, we can catch the string, and then if it's a very fast passage, we won't have time to... So we need a bit of time just to change the movement in the hand and to be able to catch the string to produce this Bartokian pizzicato. Okay, we can... yeah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about harmonics now. So we have two types of harmonics: natural harmonics and artificial harmonics, which can sound on any note. So we can do a glissando with harmonics. natural harmonics, but also with artificial harmonics. I'm not sure how we can do trilled harmonics, but I think we can. Maybe something like... So basically a trill without pressing the fingers down. So we have a trilled harmonic. Pizzicato harmonics. The lower harmonics tend to sound better in pizzicato than the higher ones. They're more resonant. And tremolo harmonics. Scratch tone. Yes, well, that's my natural tone. Depending on the way you scratch, you press the string, you can get some subtones. We can bow behind the bridge. On the tail. Or on any other part of the instrument. One of my favorite effects is the breathing. Or the sea, the waves. Yeah, we can mute the strings with the left hand. Then I have microtones. You know what those are. I prefer not to show you because they tend to sound really out of tune to me. Glissando. Which can be very slow. Or faster. You get the idea. And then, yeah, we can play very high. I guess that's what we mean there. How lovely is this? I also have a practice mute, which I generally forget to carry with me, but if you would like to use one in your compositions and you remind me about bringing it with me, I will. So that's how the sound changes when you use a practice mute. Thank